Okay, well, hello and welcome to Headlights on Demand. Today we have together an awesome panel of marketing experts and specialists. So I'll go ahead and get started on introducing everybody. First on my screen anyway, I'm seeing Sarah Ranconi from Gemini. So Sarah and Gemini do a lot of work for the van line on an ongoing basis. They work on our websites, they work on our social, on some ads that we do, and a lot of content. So you'll get to hear more from Sarah about that shortly. And then at the top right, I've got Steve Fecco. Steve is with B2E Marketing, founder and president, I think. Last
Yes.
time I looked at your title, perfect. So Steve has a long history with Arpin Van Lines, and now the last several years since Arpin has been into the Wheaton Beacons fold. Also, lots of experience with us on PPC campaigns, on landing pages, on all kinds of things. So we'll hear some great stuff from Steve. Bottom left, we've got Madi. Madi is our communications specialist at the Van Line. She does a ton of our content development. She will talk with agents anytime you have some issues or crises that come up, things that you're not sure what to do with. Madi is the best person to talk to about that. And then we have Bob Ottaway at the bottom right. Bob is Marketers for Movers. I almost called you Ottaway Digital, so formerly known as. And Bob has worked with a ton of our agents, started out mostly with Stevens, I believe, but I know he's branched out into all of the different brands at this point. So Bob has lots to talk about in terms of not only SEO and building out your website, but just a lot of breadth of knowledge on Google and a lot of other things. So we will hear a lot from all of these people as we go over the next several minutes. So make sure that you're taking notes. And when we get to the end, I'll make sure that you have everybody's contact information. So if you want to reach out to anybody individually, I'm sure that they will be happy to answer any questions. Alrighty, so the first thing we want to talk about before we start letting the panelists jump in, you're going to have to listen to me for another few minutes. We want to start out saying that what we're going to talk about today is, we're going to call it intermediate to advanced. So we're going to assume that if you're listening in on this Headlights on Demand, that you have already got the basics under control. You have a website, first and foremost. You own your Google business profile so that when somebody searches you on Google and that little box pops up, you have already claimed that listing. You can edit that to make it say whatever you want it to say. And basically that you have a good handle on your reputation online. So all of those things, if you don't already have those things under control, it's okay, but now is the time to fix that. So once we're done, any of these individuals can help you with any of those things. So reach out to somebody here if you need their help with the basics. But that's not what we're covering here today. Another thing to keep in mind as we're going through our discussion today is we all understand what the reality of the economy is right now, right? Nobody's spending a whole bunch of money that they don't need to spend. Now, need to spend is the operative phrase there, because when it comes to your marketing, you do not want to be the one competitor in your space that is spending $0. You cannot afford to lose market share by pulling back all of your marketing dollars at this point, even though you're looking everywhere in your business plan where you can cut costs right now. Cutting costs on your marketing is not the long-term play you want to go for. When you are cutting your marketing dollars, you're minimizing the market share that you get. And so if you are doing the opposite, if you are maintaining your marketing dollars, if you are continuing to put forth all of the efforts that you can, and even I know you're gonna laugh at me now, but even if you are increasing some of your spend or some of your efforts, you're going to then be able to get a bigger share of that market space. And then when the realities of the economy bounce back, as they always do with the cyclical phrases that we're in, then you're going to be in a really good position to move forward. So I've already introduced everybody, so I'm already out of whack here, but let's go ahead and dive right in. So I'm going to let Madi take things away.
Yeah, so like Jaymie mentioned, today we're going to talk about some trends that we as marketing folks have been seeing. So all of these trends are relevant for businesses of any size, but our goal today is to focus on how it relates to our agents as small business people. We're excited to have a variety of perspectives. We have Bob and Steve, who work exclusively in the moving industry. And then we have Sarah, who, works with a diverse spread of people. So we should have a pretty well-rounded chat today. And the first trend we're going to talk about is content. Being my primary role for the agency, I've seen how relevant it is, and I just want to get everybody's take on why is content important and why is it continue to be relevant?
I could start in and say, Maddie, I think that we're now at SEO 2.0, and this happened a year ago in August when Google implemented their helpful content update. And with machine learning, and whether you want to call it AI or machine learning or whatever, they are able to now determine the intent of the content on the website. And in so doing, they are able to determine whether the content is what they call high quality, medium quality, or low quality. And we started to see a lot of turbulence by the time the machines figured this out. It took about 3 months. But if you look at the graph starting in November, things really got choppy really fast. And I would just say to all of our members of the audience right now that it's gotten extremely sophisticated, and that if your content sounds salesy at all, it's probably going to be judged medium quality. They put what they call a classifier on your website, and your website will start to lose rank immediately. So we have been busy. I'm the original snake oil salesman, so we had a lot of work to do. And I'm telling you, it's been a huge undertaking. And I think all of the people in our audience need to talk to their webmaster about what is the level of their content, and to look at the Google Raters guidelines and see what their site looks like.
Tied to that, there's the question of what is content, because we think of content as just the words on your website. The content has really changed quite a bit. And with the vicinity algorithm that Google rolled out, they're also integrating Google Business Profile, or what's historically known as the map listings, with the website. So that kind of changes content too, because now you need to look at content as content on your website, blog content on your website, content on your Google Business Profile, content on social platforms, user-generated content, and something you may not think of as content, but is content, is review content. So there's a plethora of different content sources, and you have to look at them all when considering content. And the way Google looks at content, like Bob said, is changing in terms of the quality of the content. Also, when you're talking about local search, your vicinity or your location plays a big part with content. And since the vicinity algorithm, let's say if you're in the Columbus, Ohio area, but you're not in Columbus, but you're trying to rank for Columbus, but you're in a town outside of Columbus. Before, if you just wrote some good content, it was fairly easy to rank for Columbus. Now it's a lot more tricky because of the vicinity algorithm. So the way you have to write content has changed a lot. So you really have to think of content broadly across all these channels.
Yeah, I think that's really a good point. Gemini as a marketing agency, we're really focused on writing content for customers on where they're most likely spending a lot of time. And like to your point, Steve, it can be a variety of different platforms, whether it's on the website and they're researching, it could be prospective movers who are researching the best places to live in the US, or how to pack a bathroom. So writing content on kind of that more informational search query information, but it could be, posting a video on YouTube, or, content for your email newsletter. So I think there's kind of a breadth of where to provide different content, and it's important to really tailor that to where you think your customers are most likely trying to, reach your brand or find that valuable information.
So Sarah, you mentioned a couple that I know are examples from the Wheaton and the Beacon's websites. Steve and Bob, can you think of any changes specifically that you've made for our agents' websites since those changes have started happening?
Sure. Well, I mentioned how it's now harder to rank in a city if you don't have a physical location in the city, and it's become like you could be right outside of the main city, but because you're not in that city, you're not going to rank there. With your map listing, you may not rank there with your website. Also, it's really important again to integrate the Google Map listing and the website, but then to structure now that the content for that city you're trying to rank for is a lot more important than ever because you can't just rely on being close to that city. So we've implemented with a couple clients something known as a pillar and cluster strategy, where we take like a page, like a main page for a specific keyword or set of keywords, and optimize the content on that page and create a series of pages that support that page that are also relevant to that same topic, and set up a specific linking strategy which helps all those pages, like from Google or the machine's perspective, makes all of those pages kind of like one big page with a whole lot of content. So that greatly increases your domain authority, and therefore you have an opportunity to rank better for that term. So if you're not in the main city, you're in an outside area, and you want to rank for the city by using something like this, but really focusing on the content with the pillar cluster strategy, as well as ramping up the posts you're doing on a Google business profile, plus making sure your geo-targeted pages are all together. You can then rank in that city even without having a physical location within that city. So we've done that for a couple moving companies and have had good success. It takes 3 or more months before before those ranks really work. But I think we all know that SEO is a long-term strategy. So these things take some time to work.
We're not as quite as genteel as Steve is. We work with Da Vinci, and we set up a virtual office ASAP. Determine what the head end is for Google for that marketplace, and set up a virtual office. Da Vinci is about $50 a month plus $20 for what they call a mail forwarding fee. And Google sometimes will get tough and they want to see a picture of the location. Make sure that your name's on the door or on the building or something like that, because people have abused this. But just talked to somebody today in Denver and they are happy as can be. Roger Wise and I did this in Cleveland because their location was Bedford Heights, Ohio. And Roger will tell you, we went to one of the 3 in the Google Maps immediately, and the traffic starts coming in. But I would say, to Steve's point about social and about the customer reviews, this is a partnership. And if the agent does not do their share, it will fail. So we have it's a report card, but we call it a best practices list. And we tell them what the top performing websites have. They're about 10 or 12 points. And anybody that has a Google review, customer review, that's over a month old, you're dead in the water, just absolutely dead in the water. So if you can't get your customer reviews up to date, we'll do that for them, but we need to have the names and phone numbers or email addresses. So Sarah, over to you.
Yeah, so I'll continue kind of talking about the review response situation. So something that we really recommend is to not only respond to recent reviews, but really have crafted thoughtful responses to negative reviews, because a lot of the time that's what the users are going to spend the most time reading. I'm sure we're all used to that when we're searching for, it could be any type of product, but you really want to see the reviews to see people's personal experiences. So what we recommend is agents really respond in a timely manner, like Bob mentioned, and make sure that every review response is professional. You can take ownership for any mistakes, you might have made, but try not to dwell on it too much or really be argumentative. We can often see that as the negative side of responding to negative reviews, is you get the feeling to be really defensive. But it's best to just kind of offer a solution. We can reach out for, to talk about this more in depth. We're happy to, answer our phone lines, things like that, and just really show the brand as being authentic and genuine in the response. And that's something that users are looking at. And it's also an aspect that Google is looking at when they're ranking their Google business profiles. The more positive reviews you have, Actually, even the most reviews you have in general, the more likely you are to show up in the map packs. So when people are searching for, say, movers in Seattle, if you have a lot of positive reviews, you're more likely to show up in those areas as well.
Yeah, reviews have become increasingly more important, as has been mentioned. They are a rank factor both for Google Business Profile and for your website. So they're highly important. And we have some agents who have like put contests in place with the drivers to get more reviews, are using third-party tools to get more reviews. That's really important. But a few of us have mentioned the Google Business Profile. So I want to, as it relates to content, we all think of the website, but the Google Business Profile has become a lot more important. Managing your content on there is probably as important as your website. Right now, approximately 47% of all front page traffic is coming from the Google Business Profile. So we all think about SEO for our website, but Google Business Profile is probably just as important. And now it's important to to update your profile and also to post regularly on the Google Business Profile. So you want to post do blog posts every week on your website. Do the same thing, if not even with more frequency, on the Google Business Profile. And in the old days, you used to be able to use the same post on the website and the Google Map listing. Now you need to have unique posts on the Google Map listing. And they kind of look at more like social engagement. So you really want to have as many posts as possible on Google Business Profile. So, and that's probably the easiest way to rank and get some traction online versus SEO, which takes quite a long time to really work.
And so that brings up an interesting point, because Madi mentioned when we first started this topic that we have a vast array of sizes of agencies in our network. We have some that are a couple and maybe their kids, and then we have some that have 15 locations. So it's a huge breadth, a huge range of of sizes and of resources that each of our agents has to deal with. And so knowing that on a long-term basis, and knowing that best practice would really be to have a company like one of you guys do this work for you. However, it sounds like for some of those agents who don't have those resources and who just can't have somebody do it for them, it sounds like maybe even posting once a week to their Google Business Review would be worth their time and would move the needle. Is that what you're saying?
I think if you have limited resources and you don't have the ability to hire a professional marketing company, I think step number one is managing your Google Business Profile, making sure that your profile is up to date and putting as much information as you can in the Google Business Profile. And you can do that in a very short period of time. And then once you have that established, do everything you can to get reviews to it, and then regularly post to that to the business profile. And a post can be words like an article. It can be news about your company. It can be photos. You can post pictures of moves and a little summary of what happened on a specific move. So it doesn't have to be something incredibly creative. It can be something that's pretty tactical. But yes, if you post that to the Google Business Profile on a regular basis, plus have it all up to date, that should enable you to rank at least in the city where you're located, and then possibly beyond that.
I think one way of selling it, Jaymie, is to tell them that it has great analytics that come with it for free. So it gives you a lot of information on how many views, how many searches. You can do it for a month, 2 months, whatever. So there's a lot of information there. But we find with the smaller ones, they're so busy, and it just takes a lot of work to keep them involved.
Yeah, and I think with the Google Business Profile too, you can start small. You can just update, the profile photo and make sure, that's a relevant photo of your business, and making sure the service areas and the areas, that you provide moving services are up to date, business description. I think the posting is a bit more advanced, but obviously if the agents can do it on a weekly basis, that's great. And it doesn't have to be like custom crafted content. They can easily share content from the Wheaton Group sites and just, repost common blogs that we're working on there, and just be engaged in the moving community. I think that's all that, Google and users are looking for when they visit those business profiles. So Honestly, if you're engaging with a Google product, they're going to be happy. So as much as you can do, the better off your marketing will be.
Yeah.
And I would say also, Jaymie, that a smaller agent, to Steve's point about Columbus, we'll have people that have 4 Google business profiles. One for each virtual office. That's perfectly legal. And each one will get, several hundred views a month, it just starting out. And as Steve said, 47% of the traffic comes in, GMB. Hey, that's great.
Mhm. Absolutely. So I think it's time we move on to our next topic. So thanks everybody for talking about content. And remember, anybody watching, that if you want to learn more about content creation and why that is a trend you need to embrace in the next 12 months, reach out to any of these people once you're finished watching, and they'll be happy to talk with you more about it. So the next one I want to talk about is a buzzword right now in marketing and across society, really. So AI. So I think when a lot of people hear AI, they think of only ChatGPT. And from the news items I've heard the most, everybody's very worried about college students not doing their own homework. But it's so much more than that. I teased Maddie the other day because I was just listening to again, just like a 5-minute news update. And the term AI caught my ear, and it was a grocery store who had developed a new app that, using AI, it would offer suggestions for recipes. So, obviously they want you to buy all these ingredients from the grocery store and then use their app to make it happen. So anyway, something that we're going to talk about as we're discussing AI is about how AI can't do everything on its own, and why there's still a human element that is going to have to be there to make AI happen, because this app was making up all kinds of crazy recipes. The one that the news site was very, very adamant about sharing was that this recipe actually formed chlorine gas. Was very dangerous. So that is one recipe that hopefully my 12-year-old did not come across. But let's talk a little bit more about AI in marketing and how we are seeing it have an effect on our industry so far, and how we think that agents of the Wheaton Group, specifically movers, can use AI to make a difference in their companies.
Yeah, I think I'll start. So obviously AI has been a trendy topic the last couple months, but I think it's also important to remember that AI is not brand new. Google has been using AI, in their algorithm for quite some time. They use it for, reviewing images and image search. So it's not something brand new, but I do think it's really important for everyone to kind of be aware of and start utilizing some of these AI tools. I think a few ways that are applicable for agents is to just start, if you want to write a blog post or you want to update some copy on your website, you can really get some content ideation with AI tools. So, you could say, what are trending topics in the moving industry that I could write a blog post on, and it'll give you some ideas to start with. We've also been utilizing it for outlining content. So say you wanted to write a new blog post and you're not sure where to start or what format to look for, you can ask the AI tools. They can also summarize existing content for, a social media post or, an email copy. So really utilizing it to streamline some of the things that humans are already doing, but just getting a jumping off point is really helpful. But as Jaymie mentioned, you do need to have like the human eye review it. Sometimes the stuff it produces isn't 100% accurate. So you want to make sure that you're reviewing it for accuracy and making sure it's relevant for your brand. But it can be a really helpful tool in content ideation, generation, and where to start with those things.
Yeah, I think to tie into the first thing Sarah mentioned, like there are ways to use AI, but there's also the way AI is going to affect what you're doing today. And I think as a starting point, whether it's Google or Bing or Facebook, I mean, they're all investing heavily in AI. And while, say, Google doesn't really want you to write your content using AI, and you might get penalized for that, they're using AI for everything. So, for example, we talked about the Google business profiles, and they're using AI to look at Google business profiles, and they're cracking down on fraudulent Google business profiles, for companies that don't really exist, using fake addresses, etc. They're using AI to look for fraudulent reviews. We've had some clients who've had literally 50 plus reviews removed from their Google business profile, even though they're good reviews. But Google's tool went through and said, these don't look like good reviews. We don't know if the user is really a qualified user. So they remove some of the reviews. From an SEO perspective, they're using AI to look at websites, to look at content, to look and see if you're using AI for your content. From a pay-per-click marketing perspective, they're using AI to look at keywords, create keywords, decide what if you give them a bunch of ad copy to use, they're using their AI tool to figure out what ad copies to present, what audience to target, how to best maximize your campaign. And we spend about half of our time embracing AI and trying to work with it, and half of our time fighting against AI, because their automated tools are just trying to get us to spend more money all the time, and we want to spend less and get more leads for the amount that we're spending. So it's a kind of a double-edged sword, fighting with AI and using AI at the same time.
We think that it's about 30% usable out of the box. The rest is human. But I will say again, to the level of sophistication. I mean, when I just think back to the Nashville conference and where we are today, Jaymie, and what we're talking about today versus what we were talking about in Nashville, it's just amazing. And to Sarah's point, you can work with different personas, but you've got to know what you're doing. So you can tell ChatGPT, act as a first-time moving customer and tell us the 10 most important questions they would have. Act like a 65-year-old widow who's looking for a senior move, and what would the questions she would have? It's so sophisticated. To Steve's point about the Google AdWords, I really was not a believer for a long time in what's been going on, because to your point earlier about the business climate, there are some people that don't know what they're doing. And if you choose maximize conversions, it will bid up to whatever it takes to get that, what it thinks is that conversion. And I had a situation in Northern Virginia earlier in the month. It bid $141 for that click. So to Steve's point, you do have to really know what you're doing to make sure that that can't happen. But conversions with AdWords are the best they've ever been. And they've now just introduced something called enhanced conversions. And they say that the data is hashed. If you know what that means. That means that somebody can't trace it back to Jaymie Shook, but they will use Jaymie Shook's email address and contents to try and get a conversion. And it's really getting extremely sophisticated, but I think better. So I think that, AI is going to put a lot of people out of work. There's no question about it. And they're going to have to change jobs, but it's amazing what it can do.
All right, well, Maddie, let's switch over to GA4. I'm just looking at the clock and we don't have a lot left.
Sounds good. Yeah. So the last trend we wanted to talk about was GA4, which replaced Google Analytics. So this is just looking at the evaluation end of your marketing efforts. If you're spending money on digital advertising, you want to make sure that you're getting the results you want. So using GA4 to look at these metrics and analyze your ads, make adjustments as needed. I would love to hear from the group about what has changed with GA4 when it comes to evaluating your efforts.
Well, I think the reason they put in GA4 is that the way customer search is different today than it was a couple of years ago. And Google's intention, what they're trying to be, is different than what it was a few years ago. I mean, they started out as a search engine. Now they really want to be an answers engine to give you the answer that you want without having to have the user go through a bunch of steps to get there. And so the main intention of GA4 is to focus more on the user and have it very user-centric versus being session-centric. So instead of just looking at the number of visits to a website, they want to look at the user, they want to look at the individual user, they want to look at the journey that the user is taking on your website, and recognizing that people aren't just on a website, they want to go multi-platforms. They want to be able to look at, you know, what's happening on a website, what's happening beyond the website with Google Business Profile, with other things on the web, what's happening on mobile devices versus desktop devices. So GA4 allows us to look at that whole user path, figure out where they're going, what's influencing them, what's getting them to the answer that they need, not just looking at, you know, how many people came to my website, period. So that's a huge difference and gives us a lot more data to utilize and analyze to try to figure out how to optimize a campaign.
Sarah, you're muted.
Sarah's muted.
Oops, sorry. I think the biggest change from, you know, the old version of Google Analytics, GA3, UA, whatever you want to call it, to GA4 now is GA4 is a lot more focused on event-based tracking and really monitoring how people are interacting with your website. You know, they have a lot more advanced features like custom filters and custom reportings that you can set up, which would be more for like an advanced marketing team. But at a baseline, really just making sure that you're tracking how people are interacting with your website when they fill out a form, when they make a phone call. You know, you can track granular things like just a button click to see, you know, maybe there's a certain area of your site that you want to track if people are interacting with. And then you want to look at Google Analytics 4 and find a baseline for how people are interacting with your site, how much traffic you're getting from different channels, and really monitoring it from there.
So question for you, Sarah, just on kind of an example level. I'm not sure if this is an example of GA4 or not, but we were not sure. So when you're on the Beacons or the Wheaton web pages and you're finding a local agent and you put in your zip code, we had a feature on there that you could print this page. And when you clicked print, the PDF layout looked all funky. And so Jim and I looked at it and thought, well, we could spend time on fixing this, or are people actually printing these? Do we need to have this button here at all? And surprisingly to me, we found that people were using that print button. And so we did fix the layout, but was that a GA4 thing that showed you how people were interacting with that data?
Yeah, so you could have set that up in Google Analytics 3 with some tracking from Google Tag Manager, but with GA4, it's a lot easier to track events like that. And the benefit of GA4 is it has some of those event-based tracking automatically set up for you that you can quickly toggle on and off. So if you go into your profile and you go to the events or the conversion section, there are some automated things like page scroll. I think they have purchases for e-commerce sites. Obviously, that's not as applicable to the agents, but there are some automated things like that you can set up. And then if you wanted to do some more advanced tracking, like you were talking about on the button for the print view, that would be set up to trigger in Google Tag Manager, and then you can see that data in Google Analytics 4. So kind of utilizing both tools there.
We keep it really simple, Jaymie, and meat and potatoes. So they got rid of the Google Data Studios, and now it's called the Looker Studio, wherever that came from. So we set up 5 or 6 of the top searches and put that in a Looker Studio for each of the clients. They can access it on their website through a login 24/7. It updates about every 12 hours. It's not in real time, but it'll give them source medium, the cities people are coming in from. We put the search console in there for the top, what are the top searches. We put the page views in, and then we show the mobile desktop split. And some of them want to go deeper than that, but very few. And that gives them really the headline numbers that they need to know. And then we set it all up a year ago. So we're able to, our big thing is we want to show year over year.
Yeah.
Since it's a seasonal business, the prior 90 days, the prior 30 days, that doesn't mean anything. We got to know what was the same period last year and show them the users, the, you know, whatever the items are at the top. I don't know exactly duration of visit. And then they changed it from bounce rate to engagement rate, which I think is really smart. But you know, having the basics there for 99% of the people on a monthly call, that's what they want.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think too, for agents who had Google Analytics, 3 UA version, and I think the most important thing to check in now is, do you have a GA4 set up? And have the goals from the old version been carried over to events and conversions on the new version? Google Analytics actually has some automated transferring for that, so you don't have to know how to figure that out on your own. So once you begin the process of setting up a Google Analytics 4 account, it'll prompt you to carry over some of that data from GA3 and get all that set up. So that's really handy. And then, if you have a marketing agency or somebody else who's kind of monitoring the analytics for you, I think some questions that agents could ask is, do we have any custom reports set up? What are the capabilities there that we could set up? I personally love the custom reporting features in Google Analytics 4, and my focus is on SEO and organic search, and I have set up a lot of custom reports there on just like page traffic. We even have a custom report for blog traffic, so we can kind of monitor people visiting the Wheaton Group's blogs versus the main pages, like the types of moves, and monitor traffic that way. You can also set up some custom reports to drill more into lead tracking. So obviously we've talked about how Google business profiles are important. We utilize UTMs on Google business profiles so that we can track that data in analytics. And then I'm able to set up custom reports to see how much of the website traffic to the Wheaton Group sites originate from the Beacons and Wheaton GBPs. So we're getting a little more technical here, but there's just so many opportunities. So I would encourage agents working with marketing agencies to just ask a lot of questions on what's currently being done, and see if there's any more advanced techniques to monitoring performance that they can.
Sarah, have you found on Universal, they had the green page that was behavior flow. It had the box, the first interaction, second interaction. Yeah, I haven't found that on GA4.
So I believe there's some advanced reporting you can do for like funnels, which I think would be like a replacement for that. I personally haven't played around with that enough yet, but I do know that Google Analytics 4 has some options for like user flow and funneling that you can set up.
Yeah, they do have that. That's one of the big parts of GA4 is being able to set up those funnels and look at the paths that the user is taking.
Do you have that, Steve, for the replacing the behavior flow chart?
It's not the same as behavior flow, but it'll show you the path someone has. So it's a good option to use instead of behavior flow.
All right. Well, again, I know that when Madi kind of introduced this topic, she talked about just the evaluation process. So even agents, if you don't know half the words that were just said, talking about Google Analytics and behavior flow and all of the things, it's still a good idea to make sure that you are always evaluating the efforts that you put in, even if it's not GA4, if it's some spreadsheet that you have, whatever it is, use it and make sure that you're looking to make sure that your efforts are yielding the results that you want. So we are running out of time. So I am going to shift over to our action items. When I go to conferences and when I go into webinars, I want to know, what is it that I need to do in the next 5 minutes or the next week? So here's where we're going to start with that, because I just mentioned evaluation. So we're going to go around and each of the 5 of us is going to give you an action item that we want you to work on. So to start out, I want you, agents, to review your current marketing strategy. So what is your current state? What are the 5, 10 things that you do? Whoever it is at your agency that's in charge of that effort, maybe you have a marketing person on staff, maybe each of your salespeople, sales consultants is charged with a little bit of that, but write down what it is that you do. So you have all those efforts written out first. And then I want you to ask yourself, do you have those basics down? So we started off the webinar talking about those things that we're assuming you've already done because you're listening in on these marketing trends. So if you haven't gotten those down, that's the next step. And then I also want you to look at your channel mix. So that's just a fancy way to say all those things that you wrote down, that you're putting your efforts into so far. What's the mixture there? Is every single move consultant, are they all focusing on social media? Because if so, then you're missing out on a lot of other stuff that you could put in there. And again, all of the people that are on this call right now would be thrilled to talk with you about what that mix can and maybe should look like. So once you have had a chance to look and see what you're doing, then reach out to one of these people and talk with them, go over that evaluation process. So I'm going to hand it over to Madi if you want to jump in next.
Yeah, so my action item, I want you all to review your content. So what can you reuse or create new? I'm always making things for the van line, and all of our agents are welcome to take all of these ideas. Use your voice and your brand, make it your own. And yeah, it's free. So all it takes is your time, really. So that would be my action item for you.
Perfect. Bob, you want to go next?
I would say that keeping it very simple and granular. Every single one of you agents have a Google My Business page. We've talked about it before. And on that Google My Business page are your Google customer reviews. One of the things that we've done for many of our agents is develop a QR code that they can put on their business cards for their crew to take out on the job. And as they finish that job, the crew member gives the business card to the customer. And that customer can just photograph the QR code and be redirected to the Google My Business page to leave a review. There's nothing that an agent can do to help all of us more than to have current Google customer reviews.
Perfect. Steve, you want to take it next?
Yeah, one word, conversion. You started out this webinar talking about how the economy's changed, but you still need to keep a marketing focus. We can't change the number of opportunities that are, the number of searches that are for moving companies. But what we can do is try to increase our market share or close more of what we have. So conversion is key. Number one, look at the path of your website and what's flowing through, and make sure that you're getting a high enough percentage of the traffic to your website to turn into a lead. Number two, once you get a lead, that's like gold. So you need to work that lead. So we're talking a lot about like content marketing from the perspective of, generating traffic to the site. But once you have a lead, you need to work it. So nurture that lead. And that's, content marketing can play a big role in nurturing a lead, from the point of lead to appointments to close. Set up call tracking so you know exactly, what's happening. And then finally look at, consider pay-per-click. Talk to one of us on this call about pay-per-click, particularly if you're buying leads from third-party aggregators right now. Consider doing pay-per-click instead as an alternative. Typically has a much higher conversion and will have a lower cost per lead, or a lower cost per acquisition, I should say. But conversion is everything. So look at everything you can, not to spend more money, but to take what you're doing today and get more, output out of what you're spending today.
All right, Sarah, take it away.
Okay, my takeaway would be just to make sure that you have a Google Analytics 4 profile set up. That you verify that the goals that you were previously tracking in GA3 have been transferred over to event and conversions in GA4, that you verify data is appropriately flowing through in GA4. I know that sounds easier said than done, but just making sure that it's accurate on what you're trying to look at. And I would utilize the real-time reporting to double check that. Making sure that you have a good idea of what your core KPIs are and that those are being appropriately tracked. And then if you want to do anything more advanced, set up any custom reports or reporting collections to help benchmark your performance.
Excellent. All right. And if all of those words were too big for you that Sarah just said, take that list and give it to your marketing people and have them do it. That's what I do. So yay for all these people on the call who help us out with those kind of things. Thanks everybody for joining us today. We really appreciate you, Sarah, Steve, Bob, and Maddie. I think from our talk today, I think the agents have a lot of food for thought, and we'll be able to go back and talk with their teams to see what they need to do next. So again, I'll make sure that we get all the contact information for all these people out to you guys who are watching, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you. Thanks, Jaymie.
Thank you.